Namaste. On behalf of Chairperson Ms. Shubhra Maheshwari and her committee, I, Gunjan Sindhi, Honorary Secretary, FICCI Flow, would like to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guest, Mr. Alok Bansal, co-founder and Executive Vice Chairman, Policy Bazaar, Mr. Pavan Guntupalli, co-founder, Rapido, Mr. Pavan K. Chandana, co-founder and CEO of Skyroot Aerospace, our eminent past chairs, and our distinguished members. We would now request everybody to please rise for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल वंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय ही भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय जय जय
I request our illustrious guest speaker, Mr. Alok Bansal, Mr. Pavan Guntupalli, Mr. Pavan Chandana, Ms. Shubhra Maheshwari, past chair, Ms. Hina Srivastav, Ms. Jyotsna Angara, and Ms. Monica Agarwal to step forward for lighting of the lamp. I request the past chairs to join us for a photo op. I would now request the core committee to line up for the photo ops. I would now request all the power providers also to line up. Our speaker, Mr. Alok Bansal. Mr. Alok Bansal is the Executive Vice Chairman, PB Fintech Limited, that owns India's leading insurtech brand PolicyBazaar.com, lending marketplace PaisaBazaar.com. He leads the inorganic growth and investment opportunities for the company and the group as a whole. He has recently led the company to a very successful public listing. Mr. Alok's core strengths lie in strategic thinking, process control, and execution. Prior to joining PolicyBazaar.com, Mr. Alok has worked in various cross-functional roles with Mahindra & Mahindra and GE. He was recognized as one of the top 100 CFOs in the country by the CFO India magazine in 2016. He holds an MBA from IIM Calcutta. Alok has a special interest in science and technology, economic empowerment, education, and civil rights. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Personally inspired to be able to introduce Mr. Pavan Guntapalli. He is one of the co-founders of the leading startups Rapido. He started Rapido in 2015 with a vision to make last mile connectivity seamless for the daily commuter. Prior to this venture, he has worked with Samsung Research India as a software developer. An engineer at heart, he has completed Bachelor in Technology from IIT Kharagpur. The pandemic altered the course of action of businesses. Pavan Guntapalli turned this threat into an opportunity by preempting customer needs, launching and creating a sustainable solution, Rapido. True to the title of being a disruptor, he's been responsible for addressing a need that customers did not even realize existed. In alignment with this vision, Rapido was launched to leverage the first mover advantage with a suite of products being launched well in advance compared to any competition. Tapping into a white space for Rapido's use case, the brand has been able to surpass the competition and creating a differentiator for itself. Welcome, Mr. Pavan Guntapalli.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed my pleasure to be introducing Mr. Pavan Chandana. Mr. Pavan Chandana is the co-founder and CEO of Skyroot Aerospace, a national award-winning space startup which launched India's first privately built rocket. Skyroot, with a world-class team of over 200 rocket engineers, is the first Indian space startup which ISRO signed an MOU with for sharing facilities and expertise. Skyroot operates out of multiple manufacturing, testing, and R&D facilities in India, with customer and partner networks spreading across the world. He is a former scientist of ISRO turned space entrepreneur. He is an alumni of Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and master's in thermal science and engineering. He is featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia and named among the next young achievers of India today. We are really happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Shilpa. I now request Chairperson Ms. Shubhra Maheshwari to address the gathering.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to everybody. Every startup starts with an individual who passionately believes in an idea or a need that they have experienced. If you ask me personally, I have researched upon so many startups in the last 12 months. I'm an angel investor. I invest in startups. That every startup gave a single line concept which said, be the solution to a problem. Identify the problem, be the solution to that, and your startup, nobody can stop you from being a unicorn. It's because it comes into existence when an entrepreneur believes that they have found the ideal solution to a problem. The journey from being born to growing, to becoming a success, and even becoming a unicorn is not an easy path. No journey is easy. Passion and conviction are the only beginning of the road. They must be combined with clear goals, organized and timely decision-making strategies, hiring the right people, and doing the right job. In other words, the heart and the head must align and listen to each other. Today, we will hear the stories of how passion met purpose from our esteemed speakers. Thank you so much for all three of you to be agreeing to come on a date. I know how much back and forth I have done with all of you for the last so many months. So at a point of time, I was even wondering that will they block me? But thank you so very much. We will explore how their startup journeys evolve into successful business ventures so that we as entrepreneurs can gain key insights and takeaways which could be implemented into our own businesses. We are delighted to have you all. A quick glimpse of the month gone by. This month, we have organized financial literacy sessions, 5 sessions of online financial literacy sessions, opened at Pan India, and it has been hugely successful. Members have been giving us very good feedback and they want more. Our financial literacy cell also conducted a session at St. Francis School for 200 girls. Today is a very special day. We at Flow Hyderabad have also launched our annual awards. Awards for women, awards for the women of Telangana, awards for the women who have the spark of business in them. These are Flow Hyderabad's business awards. Before I tell you further upon it, can we have the video for it, please? The awards video, which we just played. There are 10 categories of awards. We shall be broadcasting the details of the awards on your Flow official admin numbers broadcast. So you all will receive it. Please spread it around, promote it. It is for the women of Telangana, for you and for me. Thank you, ladies. Please do apply for them. Spread the word. The selection process is extremely professional. We'll have an external audit partner who will be screening every application. The application form will be released today in the evening or maybe tomorrow morning. Just at a click of a link, you will get through the whole application. If you meet the eligibility criteria, apply for it. The auditor will screen through the applications. After that, there's an external jury who will go through the results of the auditor and then select the award winners. 11 January, please save your dates. It's a spousal event where we are celebrating the women entrepreneurs of Telangana. Thank you so much. The distance between you and your dreams is called action. Work now. Thank you.
Thanks, Shubhra, for the insightful address. Requesting our esteemed guests, Mr. Alok Bansal, Mr. Pavan Guntupalli, and Mr. Pavan Chandana to join us on the dais. I now request Ms. Shubhra Maheshwari to felicitate our speakers with the Flow Memento. I now request Ms. Shubhra Maheshwari to take the session forward.
Can I have one more mic here? In fact, I need 2 more. Thank you so much once again. No amount of gratitude is enough for having such big stalwarts match one common date. We have heard and read from others describing of how your ventures have been a resounding success. Policy Bazaar is a listed company. You're not even a startup now. from a startup to being a listed company of the country. That takes a lot. Our audience and I are eager to hear from each one of you your own story. Could you please let us know where and how it all began for you? How was the seed for thought sown? In a time when policies were sold like an LIC agent would call, I remember those days, and we would just go ahead and buy a policy. From there to having an app where all the policies are listed of the various companies and you choose, how did it start?
So good evening, and thanks for having me here. Subrati has been obviously, as she said, chasing me for some time, and it was my fault that I couldn't take out time earlier, but very glad that I could be here today with everyone. So, before I get into the Polishify story, you mentioned that you're not a startup, but technically, startup is less about your first year, second year of existence, more about your mindset. So, I was actually asked the same question somewhere else where they said after 15 years, kab tak startup rahoge? Kabhi to you have to grow up and mature. So I said, yeah, till the time we have this very clear, no fear of failure, we're a startup. Because large corporates typically will start to think about, how to de-risk themselves a lot more and how not to have any negative in their own jobs rather than focus on new stuff. So my definition of startup is a little different in that sense, Subrati. See, we started in 2008, and to be honest, it was not a very glamorous idea to be part of a startup at that time. So one of the things we saw was that, to be honest, ideas don't matter as much. But you have to find out a space which is available and where you are actually able to do some real solutioning for the customer. So the way we saw insurance, we said, okay, there is a mandatory part of insurance which everyone takes, which is motor, two-wheeler, or maybe some part of travel. There is some savings which get sold or pushed through a lot of these banks, agency channels, and whatever else. But there is no one who is really talking about the financial risk which comes to the middle class family because of the death, disease, or disability in the, especially of the bread earner. And that's a very big gap. Now, you will read different numbers, but if you just think about it, insurance is typically not an individual product, it's a household product. But if you talk about just middle class, maybe 100 million, maybe 120 million households will be classified as middle class. And these are the families who do not have a backup in case, God forbid, something unfortunate happens in the family. And that's the sort of mission we started with, that we have to figure out a way to get them to buy this product. Now, obviously, when you are building a business, you have to also start thinking about revenues and profits and everything else. But the aim for the business and the management continues to be the same, that how do you get more customers aware that this is an important part of their financial planning, and how do you get them the best product, best service, whether it's buying, whether it's claim, possible through us. And that's sort of a very clear North Star for us. We have just targeted that. Everything else falls into place once you know what you want to achieve. We started communicating a lot to customers in terms of them coming to us. We had a very, very clear belief from early on that term insurance and health insurance, where we focus a lot more, these are voluntary risk products. And voluntary risk products cannot be sold through agency, which is a push channel. And that's where we want customers to come to us. And in an industry where most of the transactions used to be push or attachment like motor when you buy a new car, getting a customer to wake up in the morning and think insurance itself was a very big win. So if you ask me today, the biggest differentiator about Polishify is that customers come to us. And practically about 83-84% of our transactions happen on the customers, which we don't pay marketing money today for. And that's the real brand sort of pull we could create. Once you have that, you can have other things in place in terms of product innovation, in terms of lot of ease in terms of buying. Eventually, there is a lot of data and tech at the back, but it doesn't come out as easily to the customers when they're coming to the platform. But yeah, it's been a very satisfying and long journey in that phase.
Thank you. And Rapido changed the face of Indian industry. As in, we used to have field boys who would go from my house to my office to this file, pick up this file, drop up, and then came Rapido. it changed. And my exposure to Rapido was, I was talking to one of my friends who was a mother, and she was telling me the son gets off the school bus, books a Rapido, goes to the next class and comes back. And I was like really, this is what Rapido has done. How did, young minds like yours just get into this? And were the parental issues okay that, okay, let's do this and let's get into this?
Okay. Before I answer the question, or instead of answering that question, maybe I'll take a step back, because I'm sure Rapido as an idea, a lot of you guys would agree that ये Uber cabs 4 पहिए पे चलता है, bike तो 2 पहिए पे चलता है. I mean, simplifying things, that's the concept. So I'll talk about something that happened before, which I guess is more relevant to the folks sitting here. Back when I was in Samsung, how I got started basically. When I was in Samsung, I always wanted to start up. तो क्या करता था? Every time I used to open these Forbes का articles, entrepreneurship, 10 ways to start up or 10 things to follow, all these blogs. And every day I used to read it and then feel satisfied, okay, I'm getting closer to starting up करके. But ऐसे देखते देखते सच में 1.5 years has passed. And it so happened I was on a business trip in South Korea and I was just roaming around in the office and I found an empty cubicle. I just sat and there was this gentleman stranger who was working on his work. I poked him and we entered a conversation. The conversation somehow turned into deep philosophical and stuff. So we were talking about life, ambitions, and aspirations and all these things. After that, and the conversation went on for around 1.5, 2 hours. And after that, I just felt that, I need to process whatever the discussion happened. It was a casual conversation, unexpected. I went down the office. There was a park in front of the office and I took a stroll. And then I came back up. I opened my laptop and I resigned. I put down my papers. That's exactly how I got started. And this is the much background to Rapido. One thing I realized is, I guess ideas, a lot of people have it, but it's that start. And during that conversation, somehow I realized that you never feel ready. Like whenever I was reading this Forbes article, I always had this thing that I'm supposed to know a bit more as to how to get started, a bit more as to how to assemble my team, a bit more as to how to manage, because we were fresh out of college. But that discussion made me realize that you can never feel ready and all you have to do is take a plunge. And after that, I have started almost like 6 business ventures, failed miserably. People called me cute. People called me, yeah, what is this guy even doing here in this office? And then, fortunately, I met my co-founders again when I shifted my base from Hyderabad to Bangalore. And while we are sort of thinking of an idea to work on, we use these MBA frameworks and we shortlisted the top 100 ideas that were going hot in the market. And we sort of screened them, invited consultants, friends to criticize the ideas, and went through all this process. It's basically an MBA process. And we picked one idea. Within 9 months, we shut down that idea, pivoted to Rapido. This is exactly how Rapido started. What we have learned is market is the best teacher. And whatever we think, a lot of it, market proves it wrong. Like when we were getting started, everybody said that women are not going to accept a bike as a mode of commute, especially in an Indian context. As of today, 22% of our female customer base is women, And in certain cities, it goes up to 40%, contributing to 60% of the city's rights. And that definitely market taught us.
Thank you so much. And then when we come to sky routes, I tell you, I had to do so much research myself that how can somebody just decide out of college that we are going to be making private rockets? This is beyond the vision of any normal person. How did you think about it and why you want to do this and how it happened? And today, all of us know, everybody has been reading papers. It's so fresh. They have launched India's first private rocket. And how?
First of all, in fact, thanks for inviting here. So this is the only event I saw so many women. You know, I've been in the last 4 years. I think phenomenal and a lot of woman power in this room. So it's a big privilege to be here. So just to go back in my journey, so I studied mechanical engineering, at IIT Kharagpur, where this guy is my junior, you know. So now he is a lot senior in the startup ecosystem, but this guy was junior, right? I was in college, and then we used to play cricket and all that. And then I didn't have the guts to start a company straight out of college at that time. But of course, rockets and space fascinated me a lot. You know, in fact, I've been watching a lot of launches from ISRO, from SpaceX, and all that. You know, and as a mechanical engineer, I felt that is the most fascinating machine ever built by humans. So as an engineer, I was naturally infatuated to rockets, strangely. And then ISRO came to the campus. You know, it's a lot of streak of luck which happens in entrepreneurial life. So ISRO came to campus. Generally, ISRO rarely comes to IIT campuses. And then it came to campus. And then I waited for that interview, and then lucky enough to crack the interview. In fact, like 4 people cracked the interview, and I was the least GPA guy among them. All of the others were toppers, and I was like, a backbencher who got selected in the interview, and then got to become a scientist at ISRO at the Rocket Center. I saw big rockets being built by the country. I was part of the largest rocket program in the country for almost like 6 years. My infatuation has grown to something what I say is obsession for the next 6 years, and I became so obsessed with rockets and going to space and launching rockets to space that I thought and in fact, like while I was in college, there was a lot of entrepreneurial vibe. I think I'm sure he'll agree. Everybody wanted to start a company, so I was also bit by the same bug during college, and I always wanted to start a company. But of course, couldn't start at that point of time. But there's always at the back of the mind. Then looking at what is happening across the world, SpaceX, a lot of success stories coming across the world. And when I was there was this Chandrayaan mission, Mangalyaan mission, and India was known to be like building world-class spacecrafts at a fraction of cost of the world. So then I sensed an opportunity. The entrepreneur in me and the rocket scientist in me came together. And it was a marriage of 2 emotions, I would say, which resulted in Skyroot in 2018. So we're like a 4-year-old company building India's first privately built rockets. And when we started off, a lot of people laughed at us. So it's the purview of governments. So there's a lot of red tape involved. There's absolutely no policy. When we started off in 2018, there was no policy for launching your own rockets in India. But still, we took that leap of faith and started in 2018. And then a lot of people said, you'll not be able to raise capital. In fact, it's very new. Aerospace industry is very new in startup ecosystem. No company has raised large amount of capital. While to build rockets, of course, you need to raise a lot of capital. So the people said, there's no policy, you won't be able to do it. You won't be able to raise the capital. You won't be able to get the talent because there's no talent in the for building rockets in the private ecosystem. But then everything came together. And within 4 years, everything came together and resulted in India's first private rocket launch. Just happened last week, celebrated across the country, and I think very proud as a team Skyroot that we made it in a very short period of time, and probably one of the quickest in the world. And also, like, in fact, we hit the bullseye in the first launch itself. Generally, I think a lot of people hear about rockets failing in their launches, and first launches hardly ever succeed. And we became the rarest of the rarest companies who succeeded in building a rocket and launching to space in the very first attempt, right from India, and being a Hyderabad startup. So we're very proud to,
World's first startup.
so that kind of leaves a lot of and in fact, like, recently, the Prime Minister has also congratulated us just post the launch. And and in the yesterday's Mann Ki Baat, he was telling, this launch proves in India that sky is not a limit. So that's what exactly what we feel like. A long way to go for us, but I think it's a great beginning, for us, for a startup, for a country, to go so far. And then I think we hope, like, a lot of new youngsters get inspired by this journey and story. And of course, this is just the beginning. And in fact, we named the mission, the recent launch mission, if you observed, as Prarambh. So this is just the start, just the beginning for a long way to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yes, I have myself researched on about more than, say, 500 startups when I took over as a chairperson, because this was my favorite subject to bring across a business panel to my members. And 99% of these startups are coming from the alma mater of IIT IIM. The founders are from there. So when you say we played cricket, I'm wondering कि वो cricket था कि वो that germination of idea था. And I personally also feel that whatever I researched, I could research on all sections of the business categories. But aerospace and startup was not on my list when Ananda just picked up the call and me said, let's have it. And I was like, wow, it is like wonderful. So Prarambh would definitely be the Prarambh for a mind-changing, we would be differently known on the global map with Skyroots, I hope so. Thank you so much for doing that for our country. Mr. Alok, your initial years when you decided, okay, we are going ahead, we are starting Policy Bazaar, we are founding it. Being an aggregator, there is always a classic chicken and egg problem. If you have more insurance companies on board, then there will be more people visiting the platform and vice versa. So how were you able to break that? These questions are very important because a majority of our members who are into young businesses are facing these kind of challenges. How to balance that? How to balance the this buyer-supplier issue?
There is no single big bang answer to a lot of these things. You have to chip away slowly. Whether it's online or offline, eventually business is business. So you have to figure out how do you get customers and what are the motivation for the customer to come to you. Now, typically a digital business means that customers should get choice, convenience and speed. Unfortunately, in India, digital also means deal hunting. But in insurance, somewhere that deal hunting concept was not because of the discount we could give, but more because of the choice we could give. So, initial few years were very tough, to be honest. Customers would not come very easily, and insurance companies also would not really have a system to close out the transaction. So first year, we actually took out the offline brochures, converted that into online content for customers to get something out of the website. We also used to pass on the inquiries to the insurance companies so that they can convert through their own call centers and agency channels. Somewhere we have to survive. So the way I look at any company, I say every company will have to die at some point. So the role of the founder or the management is to delay that death as much as possible. And that's what we tried to build in first few years, that okay, how do you survive those years? Funding wasn't as easily available as it was available, say, a couple of years back. So 2008 was not a great time. There were very few VCs available. In our case, there was a unique challenge that something like this doesn't exist anywhere in the world. So there is no aggregator of insurance as such in US or China. And a lot of times, even though VCs say that they want to fund innovation, but they always say, if it's not happening in US, it's not happening in China, how can it happen in India? So that's a very, very common, because they have to build their own framework and modeling. And in their modeling, if they don't see anything outside India, they think, India mein nahi hoga. So yeah, it's a lot of small things. But see, to be honest, there is also an element of luck in anything that we do. I mean, all three of us, there was the right time that we could hire someone. There was the right time we could reach out to the right people who could fund us. Maybe the industry was ready for supporting us. Uh, you know, there were enough competition in the insurance companies to partner with someone like us. And from customer perspective also, once we started to give them some value, they would come. So, you know, handshake can happen on the platform. But to be honest, 2008 to 2011, those 3 years were mostly lead gen for us, just to understand the industry. One little unique thing about us has been that out of maybe even today, out of 100 senior people in the company, only 2 people have ever worked in insurance. So you never hired from the industry per se. You've hired more for their attitude and their commitment rather than their skills. Skills you can easily teach. That's not a big thing. And maybe another unique thing would be we have very low management churn. Anyone who has joined the group has typically stayed with us forever. So even today we have more than maybe, I don't know, 120, 150 people who are more than 10 years in the company. So those things help a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, and when you say the stroke of luck, I personally believe behind every stroke of luck there is 10 years of sheer dedication and hard work. So,
Subra, the way I think of these things is what is the worst can happen, and if you are ready in your mind to live with that worst situation, you can take that call. Like in my case, I was lucky that my wife was working, and I actually had a discussion openly with her that in case this doesn't work out, how we'll manage. We can move from Gurgaon to Bhiwadi, which is much cheaper. Kids can go to a little worse school, we'll maybe home teach or something. If that also doesn't work, we'll maybe move with parents. Parents have a room upstairs, we'll manage their way. Roti aati rahegi, that's not a worry, but you know, are you ready to live with this? And once I had that support, you know, you can take those risks. You know, because first few years you don't know whether it will succeed or not succeed. You know, a lot of times when you hear things like unicorn and all, you know, these are more media concepts, to be honest.
correct.
As a founder, as a company person, you do what you do best, and these are the byproducts of what you have done.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Pavan, Rapido is also an aggregator with similar issues. Can you throw us some light on your experiences in onboarding bikes and customers and then the issues that must have come with them? I assume you've been very different because you started off as a logistics company initially and then shifted to the aggregator model also.
Yeah. The logistics company, as I just mentioned, we shut it down. We completely pivoted to Rapido. But anyways, like Alokji said, every marketplace is unique. So there is no single formula as to how you can build a marketplace. But what has worked for us is focusing on customer experience, out and out, and being really focused. What I mean by that, when we initially launched, we couldn't have the resources to launch the entire city. As you know, if you are in transport, people use it to go from one part of the city to another part of the city, right? So the ideal or the logical conclusion is, hey, if you are launching a service like Rapido or Uber or Ola, all these marketplaces, you have to launch it at a city level. But obviously, if I launch it at a city level and I don't have enough drivers, I would end up giving a bad experience to our users. So we took a conscious call saying that we'll only launch a part of the area. Like in Hyderabad, we only launched the IT part of the area, where we know there were a lot of migrants. At the same time, the residential and the commercial places are nearby, and there are a lot of commutes happening near place. So what that helped us is, with our limited resources, without compromising on our customer experience, whenever a customer opened an app, we were still able to give them a good ETA. And that is what honestly it matters for a customer. He doesn't care whether you have a citywide presence or whatnot. Whenever you open, you just need a cab or an auto or a bike within the next 2 minutes, right? And a simple formula like this has actually helped us just going at a very cluster level instead of a city level. Because these were the days where back in 2015-16, if you guys remember, everybody was saying 100 cities expansion, next 500 cities expansion. Like all these Swiggies, Pepper Tabs, Zomatos, everybody in the country. And we had money to do it. We could also go and expand. But that is what focusing on customer experience and focusing on those key metrics. What does the customer care about? Until we get it right, we said we are not going to move out of a particular city. We are not going to go for expansion. So it also so happened that for 3 years, we just ended up staying in exactly 2-3 cities. And on the 4th year, when our playbook was ready, when we know how to build things, when our product was much more mature, in the 4th year, we expanded almost 65 cities in a span of 8 months.
Wow. Wow. Pawan, so these are topics that I have picked up from founding of the company to customer base. Now, with you, everything comes to an end. So, I mean, I'm sure when you got into it, and if you would have come and told me, Shubhra, would you like, I'll make a rocket for you and let's do it for your company, and I would say, what are you saying? So, who was your customer base when you got into this? What was your business model? In fact, I'm sure everybody would like to know. None of us is aware what's happening here. We just know that the country has got its first private rocket.
Yeah, so that's a wonderful question. So most people, get carried away by the glory of, rocket launches, etc., etc. But what lies behind is a really great, solid, business model, which we're all, quite unique, I would say. For example, just like our smartphones, satellites are getting very, very small, right? So in fact, like today, you can, picture from space using a satellite, which is like a 3 kilogram, 5 kilogram satellite. You can, picture at resolution of like, 5 meter resolution, can happen. And a lot of satellites give, in fact, 10% of the Earth's surface only has mobile cellular connectivity. Rest 90% gets covered by space. So space technology is part of everybody's life. How many of you use GPS to come here? And how many of you watch direct to home television? Right? I think all disaster management, the weather, what it is the next hour, tomorrow, all through space tech. Right? Space has transformed human lives. And today's space technology is around, $400 billion business. And in the next, 10 to 20 years, it's going to cross $1 trillion business. And the key to space is nothing but rockets. The only way to go to space is a rocket launch which goes from Earth to space. So every year around like 100 to 150 rocket launches happen across the globe. And this is what takes all the satellites which give billions and billions of dollars of services to everybody. So it's a very wide, big, decent, very special niche business model, I would say. Very few players and very few rocket players in the world as well who are regularly launching and creating a business out of it, because it's extremely tough to actually build a rocket, succeed sustainably, multiple times. And SpaceX is a big inspiration, which does billions of dollars of revenue every year through rocket launches, right? So there's a lot of fundamental business behind both rockets and satellites, which we bank on. And in fact, like India has a very good advantage when it comes to we are a spacefaring nation. In the last 60 years, India has been building rockets and has been launching satellites to space over the last 60 years. We are considered the top 5 countries in the world with space technology. In fact, like we'll be surprised to know we in a lot of deep tech things like maybe like semiconductors, etc. We might have missed the bus, but in space we're always in the top, right? So that is something which we found an opportunity when I was working at ISRO, looking at the marvelous facilities, the kind of capability there. We knew that India has a great opportunity for the world by doing very big in the space sector, and that's where Skyroot resulted from, and that's where this recent rocket launch resulted from. And we set to get into the market, be one of the early players, and churn this revenue machine into a real solid business model, which is about, and it's very expanding market. So very surprising to see that there is money behind this, but actually it's quite a very interesting business model and a very niche business model to take up.
Thank you. We now come to the finance part of the business. It's all about money, honey. So yesterday morning I was at KBR. I was out for my morning walk, and some two men ahead of me are talking. मेरे broker ने tip दिया policy bazaar का share खरीद ले. And I wanted to tell them, listen, I'm with the founder tomorrow. Should I get it revalidated? So Policy Bazaar has reached a stage where your shares are being talked about. You're doing very well in business. So tell us about the financial journey of Policy Bazaar as a startup to a company where the shares are being talked about. For Rapido also, we would like to hear your financial journey. And for Skyroots, I don't know how to frame the question.
Okay, so when we started off, it was June 2008, and we started reaching out to VCs immediately. There were 3 of us who were the sort of founders, and we had a small team. So there was expenses from day one. And through our contacts, we could reach out to some 8 VCs. We got those meetings, but as I said, those meetings would have taken a lot of effort and time to actually convert to any funding. We also knew InfoEdge Ventures, or InfoEdge at that time actually, both Sanjeev and Hitesh. And they were also starting to think of investing into startups. So ours and Zomato's investment through InfoEdge happened around the same time. And we got the funding in September. But there was a time in August also where we could not pay salaries and few people quit because of that. There was also a history that there was a company prior to that where we were, although not the founders, but that company had to shut down, and which related into Policy Bazaar. So there was some background to some people that these guys may not be able to raise money, so they moved out. From that time onwards till 2014, it wasn't easy. We did raise some capital, but raising capital was tough. It was always very challenging. I mean, you assume that you will get a particular valuation or you will get a sort of a amount of funding, but that wasn't as easily available, especially for our business model, which had a lot of regulatory overhang as well. If you look at any of the financial services businesses, typically there will be a very strong regulator. In our case, there is IRDI, which is based in Hyderabad. So it wasn't very clear how we will survive or how we will grow beyond a point. So till 14 was very tough. 14 was the time when we got Tiger Global. And that changed a lot for us. One, the amount of funding we raised was little more than what we had raised in past. So it was a $20 million round. That was the only round where, to be honest, because we never asked for valuation, but the gentleman who used to run Tiger Fund at that time is a person named Lee Fixel. And Lee had been talking to us for 3+ years at that time. And he had a reputation that he closes deals overnight. But for that to happen, he spent 3-4 years prior to that with you. That no one knows. So he has been talking to us for at least 3 years, 2011 onwards, because he would come for Flipkart board meeting. He would also meet few companies when he was in India every quarter. And in 14, he was ready to invest because he saw that, okay, we were committed and the business is getting some traction. And we were in talks with couple of the funds at that time. They were sitting in our office, but we had a call with Lee in the evening. He said, send me this data and we will have a call tomorrow evening. We prepared the data, had a call next day, 5:30 India time. He was in New York. By 6 o'clock, we had the term sheet. By 6:01, we had signed and given him back. And that sort of changed the fortunes of the company from that perspective, because that's what we had never burned the money from unit economics perspective. We were always contributing positive from day one. But yes, they were a tech team. They have some brand spend which had to be incurred. And from that time onwards, we started to chase investors, not for money, but for what they bring to the table. So specifically targeting investors like Temasek or SoftBank or Tencent, because some of the investors can disrupt your business if they invest in your competition. Some of them can bring a lot of value or they connect. So 14 onwards, it was a very different journey. But till IPO, total fundraise had been about $400 million. Out of it, $250 million was lying in the bank on the day of IPO. So we didn't need to do IPO for money. We did IPO because there was a commitment to the investors that they'll get the exit through IPO. And because there was no one selling, we had to raise a lot of money. So we ended up raising another $500 million primary. So that's what we have got huge amount of capital on the balance sheet with no use, because we are adding cash to the balance sheet every quarter. But yeah, first 6 years were very, very tough.
A one-liner would be 3 times zero bank balance, where all the three founders had nothing to do but just sit in the balcony and just scratch their heads. And 2 years of just having enough money to pay salaries and not even a single extra cost during COVID. We were anti-social distancing business. Uh, and definitely thousands of rejections from the startup investors. And because Alok ji has covered the, startup investors, how they work, I'll have another take at this question. How did we manage our finances? When we started off, obviously we are a small team and we have limited resources. We don't have enough money to give salaries itself. But two things that we definitely invested very, very early on is finance team and data team. We wanted to know every penny that is going out of our business and for what, and measure the ROI of every penny that is going out of the business, where our data team helped. The struggling part was trying to maintain a balance between financial discipline in the company and the speed of execution. It's much easier for a founder to say, हर एक रुपया का approval मेरे तक आना चाहिए. But that will slow down the entire company to the founder space. At the same time, if you are sort of delegating that responsibility, things can go from hero to zero literally within no time. And there are multiple examples out in the market. So we have invested in systems from early on. Like I said, before we had our tech team, proper tech team, we had a decent finance team and a data team. And that has actually helped us. But despite that, I guess in the first 3-4 years, we were definitely struggling for a lot of money. I mean, everywhere we go, people are like, dude, that guy has $1 billion in the bank. Even if I give you 5 million or 10 million, kya kar loge? And that was the honest feedback from a lot of investors. And instead of I guess getting discouraged by it, we actually took it as a problem statement. We were confident that over the course of time, we will raise somewhere around 100-200 million. And they had $1 billion in the bank. So everything that I do has to be 5x efficient. And that is literally the principle that we follow even to this day. Our supply onboarding, our driver onboarding costs are one of the best in the industry, where now those companies are literally copying our methods to sort of make their process more efficient. We are not just 1/5, 1/10 of their costs as of today. So data team and finance team has actually helped
Having a right system in place, and you've been very strong on the SOPs. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add
Yeah.
1 or 2 more things here. Since we had Info as the first investor, and they were running a business. So when we used to go for reviews, so they had committed an amount, but they had not given that amount. We used to go every month and ask for some more money. And different business models, but so one of the things which Sanjeev told us very early on is, on the first slide, just have 2 numbers: your cash burn and collections. Revenue to Excel hai. But if you cannot manage your cash burn and collections, then you do not have a startup business at least. That sort of got ingrained in us so much that, suppose you have choice to take a 6 o'clock flight versus 5 o'clock flight by saving 500 rupees, everyone in the company will start doing that, because you can save that 500 rupees. It's not employees' own money, but still, that sort of culture got established. And as Pavan mentioned, there are times where you do not have money to pay salary because of, like in our business, there is a lumpiness of collections. Insurance companies sometimes pay 6 months ka ek saath utha ke. So then what do? So in those cases, there were a couple of times where we did not have money to pay on the last day, and we had to request some senior people to delay their salary by 2 days or 3 days. And eventually we actually came up with a very interesting concept there. We said, okay, if that happens, because the collection is BD team's problem. BD will get the salary, others will not get the salary, and everyone will not get the BD had got the salary. It put so much pressure on BD team that we never had collection problem after that.
And Pavan, how about your financial journey? It must have been very challenging to begin with.
Yeah, so when we started off in 2018, right? So in fact, me and Bharat, we both worked at ISRO before, on a government salary, and and just imagine building a rocket company with savings from a government job, right? So that's the kind of start we had in 2018. So we had to, in fact, like our savings would not last a day while building rockets. So naturally we went out to look for investments, and we were fortunate. In fact, like Alok mentioned, in 2018, there was no ecosystem to fund, startups, and very basic, very few people like InfoEdge, etc. Took that leap of faith. But we, when we started off in 2018, right, we were beneficiaries of a set of entrepreneurs who already got generated at that point of time, who had seen a one cycle of success. And luckily, we are fortunate to meet Mr. Mukesh Bansal, founder of Myntra and CureFit. In fact, we got connected through a LinkedIn message at that point of time, and then we're lucky to meet him. And he happened, luckily, to be a space enthusiast. He happened to understand the challenges in the sector. He happened to understand there's a business case for launching satellites. And then that time there was no policy, nothing. Literally just a leap of faith taken in two founders, because only an entrepreneur can understand an entrepreneur. So that happened in 2018. We got the seed fund of $1.5 million just to start off with. We started with a seed fund of $1.5 million. And the deal, in fact, like we met him and 40 minutes meeting, and the decision was made that the investment is happening. Right. So that's the kind of great seed round we had at that point of time. And that was the highest, in the sector, largest seed round at that point of time. And then after 2 years passed, and that was enough for us to fund, to build few prototypes, test them, prove capability, and then we met, Anil and Mahesh of Greenco, they're Hyderabad built entrepreneurs. I'm sure, most of you might have heard of them. So phenomenal entrepreneurs, built a $10 billion company, India's largest renewable energy company, and in fact, that also met incidentally, and then, the decision happened within the same meeting. That day itself is probably an hour of meeting or less, right? And so they invested in our Series A, and which was the largest Series A at that point of time in the sector, $11 million round. And then we're invested by, Ram Shriram, who is who was one of the first investors in Google, Sherpolo Ventures. He read a round, recently. And then the most biggest thing which happened in the sector was just two months ago. We raised the largest ever, round in the aerospace business, which people thought would never get capital, would never get growth capital. We raised a Series B of $51 million just a couple of months ago, which is a world-class deal, I would say, in the space sector. And that too coming from an investor like GIC, which is one of the largest funds in the world. And in fact, a lot of streak of luck, like I said, when it comes to meeting Mukesh or meeting Anil or Mahesh. And there's a lot of luck that GIC understands rocket science. Just imagine investors who are engineers. In fact, the partner who led our round at GIC was an engineer who knows the industry. And in fact, we speak as much business as rocket science. So quite a luck out there. So almost 3 rounds, which were the largest rounds at that point of time. Always breaking the glass ceiling was very big challenge. Being the first player going out of the market and raising capital for something like building rockets, which most people don't understand the business case out. It's very, very challenging. And a very lot of streak of luck at each phase. Lucky that we are here, and we have done a decently good amount of work, and it's a good start for us, I would say, because space is a very long horizon, and in fact, we got investors with a very long vision and a very long horizon. Whoever the investor may be, they had a great vision, which also helped us to get to here. So it's a very, very interesting journey to raise capital for us, in the country. I'm very glad that we are here, today, with a good amount of support coming from phenomenal investors.
Wonderful, and we wish you all the very best on that. Before I open the floor for our members to ask direct questions, on a parting note, I would want to understand every business reaches a stage where a competitor becomes more powerful than you. You reach a stage where you see death to no return. It's just finished stage. You see your competitor has become real powerful and there is no rebound. What is your advice to my members at that note when a business reaches a stage where you don't know, it's a T junction to take a left or a right and how to carve your way out of that situation? Basically, it's just a hanging on period which becomes very difficult at times. As you said, parents ke chala jata last resort. So,
To be honest, there is no right or wrong answer in these things. You can all find hundreds of examples where pivoting has helped, and also hundreds of examples where pivoting has not helped, and staying with the same course has helped. So, one of the things of being a founder is that you are responsible for the decisions you're taking. And that's the biggest burden you are carrying basically as a founder, that you have to take the decision, live with the decision. To be honest, maybe we are 100 people in this room. Our hit rate will be exactly same, maybe 50% right, 50% wrong. It's not different from anyone generally. It's just that how do you identify that the decision is wrong and come out of it very fast, and don't bother about the sunk cost, which sometimes differentiates. But there is no clear answer to a lot of these things, that how do you manage these things. Now, as an organization, like in our case, we are very sensitive to competition, very sensitive to competition. So we track them as soon as they start. So we make very good friends with them, we understand their space, but we keep a full track of exactly what they are doing. And it sort of pushes us to do better. In our space where we are quite dominant, it can always lead to a lot of complacency that, yes, achieve kar liya, ab aur kya karna hai. But you have to keep on pushing the team that, no, you have to do more, you have to do better, you have to push industry towards a more customer-focused solution or a product. So that's something which, as founders, we have to do. Now, one of the things we have done internally is, we have got CEOs for the businesses. Like we have a CEO for Policy Bazaar, we have a CEO for Paisa Bazaar. And between me and my partner Yashish, we basically have taken more of a board role in that sense. We do reviews, but we keep on pushing the team that, no, this is what is needed. And maybe that's helping us a lot like right now. But keeping a track competition is very important. Even though they may be 1/10 your side or 100 your side, doesn't matter. And give them full respect. If they are good, figure out ways to work together, but definitely keep a track.
For us, this situation was slightly different. The competition was already bigger, and we were pivoting from a startup. We hardly had any money. We were like bunch of literally 15 folks trying to take two multi-billion-dollar companies with hundreds of teams and everything. And like Alokji said, it's not a single formula or solution that works. But हमारे लिए तो it worked this way. We said that we are anyway screwed. Like we can't be more screwed. तो करके देखते हैं. And in a way that philosophy still runs here. Two major philosophies. One is experimentation. As long as the cost of experimentation of a particular route, if it is small, we just go for it. If it is too much cost, then obviously there needs to be more deliberation, more evaluation of, hey, can we go down this path or not? But if the cost of the experimentation of choosing a path is less, if it is 3 months, if it is 5 lakhs, if it is 4 people's bandwidth, we are like, just do it. And the second one, we track competition in a different way. We always said, वो लोग ये कर रहे हैं, मैं तो वो नहीं कर रहा हूँ, पक्का. Because obviously if I do that, maybe I'll get hardly 20% more efficient. I can do 20% more efficient than them. But for us, the problem statement right from the start was, I need to be 4x, 5x more efficient than them. So whenever we track competition, we always said, how can I completely redefine this process? And that has helped us. And when we had to shut down, again, for us, it has all, before we start, any experimentation or any route, you set the success criteria. What does success mean if I do this? Like if your business is in struggle and you want to change the scenario, what does that change mean? Okay, you say, okay, 10 lakhs per revenue chahiye in the next 6 months or whatnot. You have those hard hit, those metrics really hard, and honestly, and those deadlines also. And you tell people, especially that has worked with us, dude, it is either this or pack your bags and go home. And that has actually made sure that the last effort that the team was putting, we knew it was sincere. And despite that, if something didn't work, then yeah, it's time to say bye-bye.
Yeah, so in fact, like competition, as we all know, always will be there, throughout the journey. So what I believe is like it's a great learning experience always, and always, it pushes us to become better and more innovative. So always, like every entrepreneur wants to be the first and the best always, but things just go U-turn in just few months many times, right? So we have to be ready for everything, always be out in the watch, and then so always learn whatever best we can, and try to be very, very unique as much as we can. Always try to be the disruptors, and learn through the journey. And I would say, really, I think one thing which really kicks the entrepreneurs forward and the entire startup ecosystem forward is that cutthroat competition. Whether it's domestic or whether it's global, I think how we deal with competition, like as through the journey of Skyroot, there's a lot of experience of how to deal with competition, how to, so now we ended up, having like much more open mind to see, track how competitors are across the world, how we can do different, how we can, like, Pawan said, how to disrupt, doing the same thing makes no sense, so it's how to disrupt in a different way, it's a complete agile mindset which actually builds a great business. So it really helps us, getting, always do those course corrections which are much needed, and these course corrections have to be in the right direction. If it's in the wrong direction, like in the T junction, left and right makes a very large difference. So always make that right direction. Choice is where the winner comes out. So I think very in a nutshell, basically be open and help it push us forward in the right direction positively is what should be, I think, the attitude towards competition.
Thank you. I would now request the floor to be open for my members to be asking questions.
Guess the audience are as active as this chapter. The moment
Hi.
we open for questions, there are a ton of hands.
Hi, my name is Ananda, and my question is for you, Pawan Chandana. What is the kind of support and accessory industry that we have in to support your industry? I mean, do we have it here? How do you source your the accessories and everything? We know we have heard about auto industry and everything, but what about space? Do we have it? And do you think you will base your your company, everything operations from here, so that it will help also the Hyderabad becoming probably a hub for such support industry as well? Do you foresee this?
It's a wonderful question. Thanks, ma'am. So basically, the recent rocket we launched, right? Mostly it was made in Hyderabad, So in fact, a lot of suppliers are based out of here. And, in fact, like we call Hyderabad the rocket city, mainly because a lot of, even when it comes to DRDO and ISRO, a lot of manufacturing happens out here. That's the reason why, in fact, we, put our company as well because of the great ecosystem in Hyderabad, right? But having said that, I think always, we want to do things differently, not what was done before. So we use like new technologies like, 3D printing, carbon composites, very, very advanced technologies which were not so so matured, where we had to struggle, of course, for the first time. The struggles are always there, and try to push the supply chain to the extreme, or envelope, so that to reach these high levels of standards required for, space systems, especially, which are like, even a single mistake, one mistake will blow up the rocket. Just imagine how we were feeling those when the countdown started 10, 9, 8. So everything has to work perfectly to see it succeed. And in fact, like just because you mentioned automobile, in automobile industry, what happens is you build the car or bike, and you test them on the ground on track, right, many times before you release it to the public. But in rockets, you just launch. You only know whether it's right only during the launch, right? Because the only way a rocket can get tested is only after it launches. Before you test system, subsystem separately, it doesn't matter. The actual rocket launch is the final test. The supply chain is a very, very critical aspect. The winners are generally the winners of supply chain, and Hyderabad supply chain is like the best, in the country. And of course, because it's the rockets are very few countries build rockets on their own. So probably we can also say that Hyderabad is one of the best ecosystems in the world for supplying of space systems.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
I'm Jyotsna Angara. We met a short while ago. So firstly, congratulations to all three of you. I think you have got the world to recognize that they need to watch out India. Till now, they've been pointing towards India, like you all said in your conversation. China ही नहीं किया तो आप क्या करोगे? But I think now it's time for them to wake up, that we have the capability, we have the brains, we have the wherewithal to do things. So, absolutely outstanding. Just to put the other perspective that you were talking about, investors. I mean, just like people who invest in art, they're always following silently, without even the artist realizing that, they're watching the artist before they invest and buy an art. So investors are similarly the same way that you spoke. Now coming back to the question here for you, Flow has established, I don't know if you're aware, an industrial park, all 25 units there. Government gave us land, 25 units, owned by women, 100% owned by women, run by women. It's in Patancheru, close to Sultanpur. Okay, we brought in about 250 crores investment. So, like you said, you've bought all the stuff here. We'll try to encourage our women to get into non-traditional industries, into the manufacturing sector. So that would be great, because I was going to get something similar to what Ananda spoke, and it would be great. So you would have a chance eventually, if our women put it up there, to say, this is the world's first completely, every part supplied by women. You would be the first there too then. So that was great. That's great. So the question to the other Pawan with the V. There's a Pawan with a W and a Pawan with a V. Have you had women who are your bike riders, and have they had any safety and sexual harassment issues? The reason I'm asking is, I work with the Cyberabad Security Council, as a EC member there. So we keep hearing many of such things. I also, at a personal level, trained women to be drivers, because I just want them there. And I do this at a personal level. And today, from zilch to 34 grand a month they earn. I've put them up with the Department of Women and Child. They're working. But there are issues, because when we wanted to push more women, they said, deliveries, no, they have to be left there at the, not go up to the apartment to deliver, but give it at the gate and stuff. So have you faced such things? And how do you address it? Because Uber has, and Uber doesn't care a damn. You know that, right? They don't take any responsibility for anything. Your take.
Yeah, so this was our first concern, even before we starting this model on bike, right? Will women accept us, both as customers or as our driver partners, or we call them as captains? both as our customers and captains, will women accept this as a mode of transport? But obviously, like I said, we just said, launch karke dekhte hain, jo hoga so hoga. And I've realized Indian women are pretty amazing. They can survive in almost any circumstance. We were actually thinking of, we were looking to global markets and thinking, okay, can the driver have a separator sheet, a male driver have a separator sheet carrying on his back and whatnot, so that we can create a sense of separation. But obviously that required a lot of money, and before doing that, we just launched. And when I, as a founder, we go out on, we go out as drivers on days. On a particular day, I've got all customers as female customers, and out of curiosity, I ended up asking them, yeah, don't you feel uncomfortable sitting behind a stranger? They always say, dude, did you ever see a woman going out or stepping out of home without a bag? Or without it can be a handbag, a backpack, or whatever it is. Usually they put it in between and they sort of just scoot a bit back and they sort of create their own sense of separation. And this is the other interesting perspective that I have got to know from women, that for them, sense of safety works differently. Bike is more open. It is more, it is more open. Women will understand what it means.
Yes.
It is not in an enclosed environment and everything. And the worst case, they can just jump or shout or do whatever. And that mattered to them a lot more than whatever this proximity and everything. So coming to your answer, we have women captains. Almost 7% of our captains are women. And at the same time, we are not just leaving it to the Indian women jugaad or smartness to defend themselves. We have particular features where the immediate, if it's a women driver, and they press an SOS button, obviously it goes to the police station and everything, but the nearest another Rapido driver, Rapido captain also gets alerted. That is true rescue on time. That is something that we are sort of looking forward for. And we are going to sort of launch and promote this in certain cities like Guwahati and everything. We have more than 25% of the drivers as women, because there women is more of a primary bread earner and everything. But that same culture we are trying to replicate in all the other parts of the cities by introducing these things. It is usually 22 to 40, and I always tell my team that I want Rapido to be a place where my mom can happily sit on a bike and go from place to place, and I'm not worried about her comfort, safety, convenience, accessibility, or any of that stuff.
Very nice.
That is the mission we are on.
Hi, I have a question to Mr. Alok. I wanted to know one or two things that helped you in retaining your staff. I mean, for me in my business, whether I'm too sweet, it doesn't work, they take you for a ride. If I'm too strict, it still doesn't work. If you pay a lot, I don't know, it doesn't work for you. So, is there anything like a mantra that has worked for you really well in retaining your staff? Or
I guess I also have the same question.
No, I think you have to be genuine and open and honest about communication. So that's
Okay.
the starting point. See, I'll be very frank here. I don't think, at least as an individual, I can judge anyone in half an hour of interview. So typically, we don't have a very, very long interview processes. What do you want typically from a person when you're interviewing? You're trying to see whether this person can be a team player
okay,
before they can be individual contributor. If they cannot put company first, then they cannot join Policy Beta anyways. So we'll try to figure out those sort of things. One criteria which I always had when we were hiring was that person cannot be a gloomy face. He has to be a happy person.
for sure.
I can't
for
have
sure.
gloomy faces roaming around the company.
Right, for sure.
Uh, Typically, we have given a huge amount of independence. We don't pay the best. We don't pay the best. Uh, in fact, early first few years of the company, whenever we hired at least senior people or mid to senior people, we would hire the same salary or a little salary reduction just to see whether the person is actually committed or not, and maybe compensated by ESOPs. But at that time, ESOP was just paper, nothing else. Uh, but we give them a huge amount of independence and let them decide everything about their own work area with some boundary conditions. And those boundary conditions are decently flexible. Anything outside those boundary conditions or exceptions, they come to us. But within that, they do whatever they need to do. So, I think somewhere that has helped a lot because people found that they had a feeling of ownership and belongingness, which is almost like being a founder of the company or being the owner of that area. Like we had a person who joined from Narsi Monji 12 batch, directly from campus. Her father had a small business in Delhi, actually decently large business in Delhi, but she's crazy in terms of the number of work hours she was keeping. Like she will be in office till 10 o'clock, then morning 4 o'clock she's sending a mail, and 10 o'clock she's in office in the morning again. And I'm like, क्या कर रही है तू ये? मतलब मैं भी नहीं कर रहा ये तो. And but she had by nature that sort of work ethic. In between, her father asked her, बेटा ये क्या हो रहा है तुम्हारी लाइफ में? And the answer she gave was, पापा आप अपनी फैक्ट्री में काम करते हो, हम आपसे पूछते हैं क्या? So for her, this is her own business. This is not a job. And for that, you have to give that space to the people.
That sense of ownership.
Yeah, we don't keep on asking people that ये decision क्यों लिया, वो क्यों लिया. यार देखो, बहुत simple है. Till the time you feel that person's intention is right, the decision obviously may not be exactly same as what you will take or I will take. But at least they are taking it in the best interest of the company. So give them that space.
Got it.
And that space is what people want actually in the job rather than just the salary.
Got it. Thank you so much. Also, yeah. Yes, please.
I would like to add what Alokji just said. Sense of belongingness, whatever he said, I guess it's actually very important. I'll just quote an instance that we faced through recently. If you guys remember back in 2020, when obviously COVID struck all of us unexpectedly, a lot of companies decided to do cost cutting. And there were layoffs left, right, and center. That is the second cycle. But we as a company were also faced with a similar challenge. Like I said, we just had money to pay our salaries, so we couldn't afford the big staff. But we always told our team, whenever I address my team, Rapido family, I address them as Rapido family. Okay, that sense of belongingness. And when this particular stage came, where all the external circumstances, the board and investors, the entire market was basically pressuring us to do layoffs. And obviously, we were one of those companies whose revenue actually went to zero. Bike taxi, anti-social distancing, bikes mana hai, we were literally down to zero. And nobody knew at that time as to when recovery is going to happen. But then the founders got together, we took a stand saying that, hey, these are our team members, and if we achieve success, obviously most of the credit goes to the founders and these guys. So if we achieve loss, why should it go to the team? And we said, let's not fire anybody. And honestly, we did not go through it. What happened after that, and this is just one example, is that when the recovery happened, Rapido happens to be one of the most thriving companies in ride sharing as compared to the competitors who have taken a lot of cost cutting measures. So our competitors gave literally a 2x offer to everybody in our company, no questions asked. Guess what the team did? Everybody denied. Literally everybody denied. 2x, and we literally had their offer letters. We just joked about it in our meeting rooms. Yes, we had to talk because it was so serious. We had to, address the issue. But what was supposed to be a big event in our company, it turned out to be a casual, joking conversation with the team members. So if you treat them like resources, maybe they'll also treat you like a company. If you actually treat them like family, maybe they will actually pay you back.
You want? Yes.
Well, this is Hina Srivastava, and thank you for being a part of the Flow family today. All of us feel very privileged to see these big dreamers. It's not like if dreams come true, dreams are true. One question here. We've understood Rapido business, we've understood Policy Bazaar. Sir, do you think women are going to be thinking as big as you do? I really would like to know, coming from a Women's Forum organization, that do you have women in the team, and are you aspiring for these young women to think as big as you did? And so also with Rapido and with Policy Bazaar. So when you talk about women, he talked about a 7% women in his company. I'm sure that will grow bigger and bigger and bigger. But saying that, just one line there, that what is it that women can dream and make it big as you did? I'd really like to understand that from you.
Yeah, I think in our industry there is one big woman inspiration which we all know. Any names?
Kalpana Chawla. Yes. I won the point.
Yeah, so I think, so she achieved bigger than I think most people ever in our sector, by becoming an astronaut who rode to space, and it's a big, like the name says, very big inspiration for everybody. So in fact, like we find a very big challenge to get women, into our. In fact, I think we have maybe around less than 10% probably. So in fact, like we always keep looking, and in fact, when there are two candidates selected and there's one woman and one man, I say, take the woman, and then I get a lot of flack saying that why are you giving preference to women? But I feel that they have some energy, which I think very important for the company. Just the intuition that they have certain talent and certain capabilities which probably men won't be able to do. So I would say it's more like a complementary, to have a good mix of men and women. And space technologies, I think, I strongly believe that women can do a lot great contribution in the world. And in fact, like we're always looking for a lot of young space scientists to join us. We want to create a new program where a lot of women flow in, stay for a very long duration of time, and there's a lot of pride to build space tech from the country being a woman, and it will be celebrated across. In fact, like when November 18th last week when we launched, the whole country celebrated those 200 people who made this happen, and among them there are like a few great women who are part of this great mission, and they're all very excited to make this happen. And I feel like this will inspire more and more women to join this sector, and definitely there's a lot of energy inspired by Kalpana Chawla, who did it really big. I think a lot more Kalpana Chawlas to come in the future. Absolutely.
After her, just one more after that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, so I'm Priya Gasdar, and like Jyotsna observed, we have two Pavans, and my observation is both are in mobility, both are in speed. So
That's a great observation.
So my question is again to you, in the context that we also have an insurance expert here. What kind of insurance do you need to take in case it fails and you're carrying a major payload? The figures must be mind-boggling. And
yeah, so that's a very good question, which a lot of people. In fact, like in fact, I'm proud to say that we're the first company in India to actually took an insurance for a rocket launch, which we have done just recently before the launch. But surprisingly, there, as I mentioned, like 100 to 150 launches happen every year, and there is a clear liability regime which is clearly defined, guidelines defined. There are companies which offer insurance, in this field as well. quite surprising as it may be. But it's not very high, I would say. It's decent. In fact, like they do a lot of questionings, like every insurance agent. So we have to give a good amount of data, a good amount of confidence. In fact, this time we were lucky because the government was watching for us. And so that way, like the government said, it's good shape, go for it. And I think that gave good confidence for the insurance agent. And also in the insurance regime in space sector, one very interesting thing is that there is a limit, and it's called a liability limit. Beyond that, the government will take care of the liability, So that in fact, the insurance agent only have to, insure it to that particular maximum, which is defined in the liability terms. But beyond that, the government is there to take up because, something huge which happens, of course, the insurance companies should not close down. So that way, like, I think there's a very nice, good government relationship angle which comes into the picture, which makes it happen. So, we want to do something very different from everybody else. Be so that everybody feels proud that something like Skyroot comes out of, and they're doing something very different from the Richard Bransons and the Elon Musks of the world. But of course, we're always afraid that which big person will come and take over. But of course, we want to stay different and stay foolish, stay hungry until we differentiate ourselves from the rest of the world.
Just put it on. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Namrata Patwari. I'm a chartered accountant and the co-founder of an investment banking firm, Quadric Capital Services. I've heard you speak about the challenges you faced with raising funds with VCs and otherwise. What do you feel would be the one change in the ecosystem to make the process of raising funds easier for the entrepreneurs like yourself? Secondly, what would it take for new investment bankers like me, who are extremely hard work, to be noticed and picked by companies like yourselves for the next rounds of your funding?
Okay. Okay, so basically if a founder needs to go through an investment banker, then they are a failure anyway, to be honest. Founder needs to figure out how to reach out to investors directly and give their own stories. Typically, serious investors will not look at investment banking deals, typically. The problem in India, which exists even today, to some extent, is that most of the VC funding is not VC funding. It is very similar to PE thinking. So they want to de-risk themselves as much as possible, even though they call themselves VCs. I'll give you an example, again, from what I know about Lee Fixel and why I consider him to be the sort of a champion of VC thinking. So there's a company in US called Harry's. So we have never thought that why Gillette doesn't have a competition. But Gillette is dominant and almost monopoly everywhere in the world. So there were these bunch of guys from University of Washington who thought that they will want to create a competition with Gillette. So they created this company called Harry's and they got funding from Lee. Now when they were going out in the market to look for the steel which is required for that shaving blade, they searched everywhere, they could not find that quality of steel and blade, except for one company, one factory in Germany. So they were talking to Lee and Lee said, okay, that will become a very big risk to the business because if you have only one supplier, that becomes a very big risk. So why don't you just acquire that company? And he funded them $100 million at an early stage to just acquire that company. Now that's a VC. We don't have VCs in India. What we have is people who invest in private companies but think very similar to PEs, even though they're doing early stage. And that's the sad part.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. This is for Pavan Skyroot. Yeah. Unlike Space One in Japan and Richard Branson Virgin and Elon Musk, of course. So how we visualize your Skyroot company further like them, that for humans to the space shuttle going to the aerospace?
Great. In fact, I would like to say that SpaceX is a 20-year-old company. And Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' space company is 22-year-old company. And I think Richard Branson's company is also, close, 15-year-old plus, company. And so when we started, we are a 4-year-old company. So what we want to do is that we want to go, and in fact, like we are, and in fact I'm not a billionaire. Okay, so unlike all of them, so they have lot of cash, risk capital to risk, and they have done phenomenal job, phenomenal contribution to the space sector for sure. So in this hard case, so where we have to raise capital and move forward, and then like the further growth will be decided on the revenues and the profits and the how solid the business model is, right? So we have to think very, very different. So that's where like we wanted to always focus on how we can meet customer demands in the market, especially, to start off with, we saw the biggest demand is coming from in the next 10 years from small satellites, launching small satellite. Small satellites, anything below 500 kilograms, in mass. And in the next 10 years, I think, there are numbers which say 40,000 satellites will be launched to space. There are numbers which say, 1 lakh satellites will be launched to space. So there's a lot of satellites being produced, and lot of market dynamics which is coming into picture, around this. So we thought, we'll just focus on this particular, regime, just focus on how we can launch small satellites the best and at the most reliable and cost effective way. And our focus is only that for the next few years. And once we get to this market and become one of the early players on that. And in fact, like we know in space technology, it's like, when you can launch rocket to space, putting payloads, you can launch satellites, you can launch humans, everything, the technology is same, just like maturing, one step ahead, but the core tech remains the same. So at one point of time in the future, like once we get reasonable revenues out of the satellite launch, and we want to expand our horizons to launching humans to space. In fact, our mission statement at Skyroot is opening space for all. We are not going to stop until everybody accesses space. All of you, one form or other access space. And what do you mean by opening space for all? For example, I imagine a time where probably every student launches a satellite before they graduate. So that the kind of so that is one level of opening space for all. Everybody in their lifetime travels to space, has a holiday in space and comes back, and every company can launch their own satellites, whether to track their assets or for their communications or various needs which satellites form. And then we have a very active and permanent base outside of Earth, because I am a strong believer that Earth is not enough for human civilization. The next big frontier is expanding to space. Definitely we'll see in most of us in our lifetimes, people permanently living in space, and space has all the resources we want. Just trillions and trillions of people can work, for a very long period of time with resources from space, while Earth is not enough. I think it's a great, exciting future which you want to build, and the key to that is rocket launch. The only way you can, put something to space is a rocket launch, and that's where we focus goes into, making the tech better and better, pushing boundaries in our own way. The Elon Musk of the world exists, the Richard Bransons exist, Jeff Bezos, exists. Let's do in our own way and, reach higher heights like, the space tech, means build out of the world products. Very, very challenging journey, and building it without being a billionaire is even more challenging. That's what we are set to do. And thanks a lot for asking that question. Thank you.
Last question. Yeah, please.
First of all, it's been lovely to see you all passionately speak about your ventures. So the three of you are very special in a way that one talks about insurance, one you've already spoken about having women acceptance, and then one's talking about going out of the world. And there's one thing common is that all of you have built trust-based businesses, right? Now, I'm into education, which is also another trust-based businesses. Now, I would like to know, what does it take for another person to believe in you? I'm sure one starts from believing in oneself, but how do you create trust? I'm sure, I think I'd love all three of you to answer that.
I think you take it. The senior should take it first.
See, it's more about actions, less about words actually. Whether it's your team, whether it's your customers, whether your partners, they need to trust you. Once they trust you, they'll trust the company. And you doesn't mean the paperwork, you means your word and what you're committed. And I think that's pretty much where it starts from. Yes, it will take some time, It can't happen overnight. So you have to be patient on these things. But eventually, the trust comes from the person, and the company is just a reflection of that.
For us, we actually face this problem, especially when people think of bikes, they think safety as the first concern. Men, women, everybody, right? So we first had to minimize the cost of not trusting us. So we were the first in the entire nation to create something called ride-sharing insurance. Right now it is a normal concept, like in Ola, in Uber, you get a ride-based insurance. But back in 2015, this concept itself did not exist. But we wanted to tell people, okay, in case something unfortunate happens, we are here to cover you. So we had to sort of sit with multiple insurers and sort of come up with a customized insurance scheme. And we did that so that we want them to try us. And what again went behind the scenes is, we put a lot of work in training our drivers, in sort of having telematics in our driver's app, so that right from the moment as to how, at what speed he is traveling, to how steep a turn he is taking, we track everything. And we sort of train, collect data, and pass the feedback to our drivers. So the first step would be definitely minimizing the cost of, hey, what if they don't, what if the worst happens? How can you minimize the cost? Second one is obviously delivering it. Like you see this playing in electric vehicles as of today also. People will, you can sort of say, hey, full vehicle safety, full vehicle insurance done. You can take that risk for some time. But then after that, once your vehicle is out, your customers are going to validate that safety aspect for you. Your customers are going to say, hey, you know what? I take Rapido every day, and I've never faced an accident. So that's how. First, you sort of minimize the risk for them to try your product, and you actually put in the work to deliver that safety when whatever you are committing.
And so I think my thing will be a bit interesting, because when we say we're going to build rockets and launch, you have a lot of trust issues, and nobody trusts you. And in fact, the best of the best people, after our launch, they called me up and said, Pawan, I really appreciated the kind of ambition, the mission, the starry eyes, and what that you all want to achieve big, but I never thought you'll launch a rocket and succeed. They were very frank, and they were very, and now, after the launch happened, I think that changed their perceptions, is what they openly, frankly told me. So in fact, when you have trust issues, just make the work speak for itself. That's what we have done. In our case, everybody, because rocket science is rocket science, which we have seen through this journey, extremely challenging. Very few companies able to make it, and we made it really with flying colors for the first time. So in fact, a lot of people had casted doubts. Of course, it's natural. A lot of industry experts, even media, a lot of people, even though they appreciated the bold initiative, but always had the doubt at the back of the mind whether it can happen, in this kind of time frame where these guys are talking. Everything happened well, and to solve all these trust issues, we launched a rocket to space. Yeah. Ma'am, you are a natural rocket scientist. Yeah, so in fact, we produce rockets in large numbers, is what IAM is, and producing is very, very difficult, and so that's where, when the rocket launches, and for example, the rocket we launched, it fell in the sea. It's over, it's a very bad ending. But that's what rockets do. In fact, of course, we want to build a future where the rockets come back and land, and we reuse it like aircrafts, and that will truly open space for all in the future, which we're all building at this point of time. But now, all the rockets we produce, they go to space, fall in the sea, so that way, like, it's a very bad ending. So we need to keep producing more and more rockets. It's a production challenge, and then, it's a tech challenge to produce in the enough numbers meeting the customer demand.
That's going to be the last question for the evening. On a popular demand, we'll have 2 questions. Short, yeah, brief.
My question to all the 3 people there. Firstly, congratulations, Pawan, for making India so proud and making each of us proud to be, having private rocket from our country. My question is very simple. Like, as an entrepreneur, we always have the fear of failure. So, what are the 3 qualities that each of us should have in the early beginning stage of the journey in order to keep it going and hear the success in each of our story?
I think not only me, I'm sure like every entrepreneur considers failure as part of the journey. By nature, by the mindset itself. I'm pretty sure, I think Alok and Pawan also would agree to that. We know that, failure is just part of the journey. You will fail, there is no doubt. Just be prepared for how to come out of it. And it's just a matter of, how you come out of it, how fast you come out of it, with what spirit you come out of it. I think that changed a lot, because seeing a lot of failures, especially, space tech, makes you humble. Whatever best we do, a lot of failures which happen, and the history has taught us a lot. Anything can go wrong. Rocket can blast anytime. You build the best of the best system, still, things can go wrong. So that, I think, that history taught us, at least in our sector, to be very humble and always be cautious and always accept failure as part of the journey. I think that mindset really helps an entrepreneur really grow, where we accept it as it is. Failure will come. And then it's just like how you come out of it is what matters.
The last question, please. Can you?
Hi, thank you. Just a quick question. So, in the entire time each of you spoke, I don't think we've ever heard you say I. You've always been saying we. So, my just quick question. Each of you have co-founders. I wanted to ask, as a team, it could be a co-founder or external mentor or whatever. What are the ingredients that it takes in a team to make it through the rough times of building a business from scratch?
See, I normally see this, the whole startup journey as like having a boat in the open waters. At the early stage, the boat is very small, so any small wave will rocket. But as you start to grow, the boat converts into a yacht and a ship, and obviously you are able to take care of a lot of those ups and downs. Early stage, yes, I think anyone who's built a business will know that in a day you will have very high highs and very low lows, and multiple times in a day. And having a co-founder definitely helps. A lot of these things can't even be shared with your family. So you will have to have someone who goes through that journey. Chances are that 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3 people who are the co-founding team members will be in the positive mindset and will be able to carry everyone else through that low period. So I think, at least I can speak for myself, I'm not a person who can start on my own. So I'm very lucky to have a co-founder and a sort of respect between the co-founders, where each knew what they're supposed to deliver, but had enough respect and enough space given to each other. Normally co-founders can be people who worked together in past or who have studied together, so there will be some similarities. But there is no clear formula on these things, whether they have to be complementary skills or same skills. What needs to be very clear is that ethos or the value system has to be same. Otherwise, there will be problems. And the decision making should be very clear. Eventually someone has to take care of the final decision. And a person who's taking care of marketing will have to have the veto of marketing. A person who's taking care of finance will have to have veto of finance. Something of that sort has to be established. And you have to have a working relationship, otherwise it won't work. But from my perspective, having a co-founder is a very, very big plus.
I would align with what Alok said. For us, so my co-founder is someone whom I have known for the past 18 years. But for the first 13 years, 12, 13 years, even though we were close, I felt that I've known him a lot more over the past 6 years than the first 12 years ever. One thing that worked for us is this fundamental thing called respect. No matter whatever the situation is, no matter whatever the argument is, I know that guy is equally smart and coming from a different perspective. And because we have respect towards each other, at the end of the day, even though we had the biggest of the arguments, we came to the table and discussed and obviously had deadlines for those discussions and sorted it out. As long as you have respect, two things are going to happen. One is the best argument obviously wins. And in case, let's say there is no clear winner, one of them will at least agree to disagree and still commit, still support. And that's how your journey goes. You win, one co-founder wins some battles, one other co-founder wins some battles, but you align with each other and you support each other no matter what the decision.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bansal, Mr. Gundupalli, and Mr. Chandana for such an inspiring and stimulating session. Ms. Maya, please get the autograph sheet to the dais to get it autographed.
Vote of thanks is announced by my dear friend Aparna. One small point I would like to bring to the table is when I told you guys that I've researched on 500 startups, and definitely I've reached out also to about 50, 60 startups, the kind of empathy that I have felt from all three of them. So your business doesn't grow just by the number of zeros in your balance sheet or in your profit statements, but the kind of feeling to give back to the society, I have felt it personally with all three of them, especially because with Alokji and Pavan, I've interacted personally, and there was this sense of telling you, there was this sense of giving back to Flow members. Okay, this is an industrial body, let's give it to them. So that sense of giving back to the society is what sets you guys apart from the others. Thank you so much for coming here.
Yes. Ms. Aparna ready to deliver her vote of thanks.
So that was an extremely inspirational and insightful session. Flo would like to thank our keynote speakers today, Mr. Alok Bansal, Mr. Pavan Guntapalli, Mr. Pavan Kumar Chandana, our platinum sponsor, Argentum Arts, diamond sponsor, Freedom Oil Brand, creative partner, RBC, hospitality partner, Radisson Blue Plaza Hotel, the media, and all the guests present here today. Thank you. And please join us for high tea.